Well, folks, it's officially the spooky season. The time for us to soothe our ravaged pandemic wounds with a gentle elixir made of pumpkin spice lattes, fun-sized candy bars, and the smug satisfaction that even before you watched Lovecraft Country, you already knew that Cthulhu was a racist. Let's get right into today's segment that we like to call Everyone's Asking, No One's Asking, where I give an answer to a question you won't stop asking me if you agree to stick around and listen to a story of my choosing that you absolutely did not ask for. Deal?
Flotsam jetsam, now I got 'em, boys.
The boss is in fact on a roll. In today's Everyone's Asking, what is going on with that woman who woke up alive at the funeral home? Here's the background. On Sunday, August 23rd, Tamisha Beauchamp was declared dead by paramedics. Her body was then taken to the James H. Cole Home for Funerals, which is a great trick name for a funeral home. Home for Funerals, you almost had us there. After spending 2 hours in a body bag, employees of the funeral home discovered that Beauchamp was not only breathing, but could open and close her eyes.
An internal investigation is underway to find out how paramedics determined a woman was dead when she was in fact very much alive.
When a worker here at the James H. Cole Funeral Home on Schaefer in Detroit unzipped the body bag that 20-year-old Tamisha Beauchamp was in, her beautiful eyes were open because she was actually alive.
Day one of mortuary school, they teach you dead people should not be blinking. No breathing, no blinking. Imagine being the poor staff member at the funeral home trying to convince everyone that the dead woman they just brought in was still breathing. I'd be like, sure, Dan. It turns out that this employee was in fact not wrong, and that Tamisha Beauchamp was in fact not dead. That's right, she was
Alive in a funeral home.
Truly PR that James H. Cole Home for Funerals does not need, although they didn't do anything wrong. They were the only professionals here who knew what a living person looks like. So how did this happen? Early that Sunday morning, paramedics were called to the Beauchamp's Southfield home just outside of Detroit. Paramedics found that the 20-year-old Beauchamp was not breathing, and after administering life-reviving methods like CPR, it was, according to the chief of the Southfield Fire Department, determined at that time that she did not have any signs of life. When Beauchamp's mother, Erica Lattimore, asked, "Are you absolutely 100% sure that she's gone?" the paramedics said to her, "Yes, ma'am, she's gone." Beauchamp was then placed in a body bag and taken to the Home for Funerals, where she was discovered to be alive. Her mother was notified and Beauchamp was quickly taken to the hospital, where, at the time of this recording, she remains in critical condition. There are quite a few things to unpack here. First, and this is just a personal issue I have with the way stories like this are reported and how they play into people's fears.
Alive in a funeral home.
She didn't wake up alive. The people in these very rare stories were never dead. They were delivered to places that dead people go through medical error, and that's no good. It's horrifying, but there's not supernatural stuff afoot here. So if Tamisha was never actually dead, why were they saying she was dead? My immediate reaction, just from reading the main headlines, was why was a 20-year-old woman taken directly to a funeral home, not taken to the coroner or medical examiner's office for an autopsy? That's where a body will typically go if such a young person dies unexpectedly. The most crucial piece of information here is that Tamisha has cerebral palsy and received treatments to help her breathe 3 times a day. When I learned about her cerebral palsy, the medical examiner agreeing to just release her to the funeral home made much more sense. Tamisha had a lot of people, likely including doctors and maybe even these paramedics, having the preconceived notion that this was a woman with health problems who could die at any time. She didn't even need an autopsy. We know why she died. Straight to the funeral home. Case in point, the paramedic who resuscitated Beauchamp stopped a full 6 minutes before a doctor, over the phone, by the way, told him it was okay to stop. And he didn't use a stethoscope to double-check circulation or respiration. The health department has since said that the vital signs and description depicted to the physician were inaccurate. Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Her breathing was had returned back to normal.
And what did they do? What did they say? They just kind of brushed you off,
Yes,
or what?
yes.
Apparently, that same paramedic was called back into Beauchamp's home when her family found her to be breathing. They put her on a monitor that showed electrical activity and breathing, which science tells us dead people do not do, but still nobody did anything.
It was faint, but I felt a pulse. I've been a nurse for like 38 years, and I kind of know when there's a pulse or when there's not.
That woman in the video is Tamisha's godmother and a registered nurse. The whole family was ignored and disregarded when they attempted to advocate for Beauchamp's life. The paramedic told Beauchamp's family, yeah, the meds she was taking will make her chest move. Again, if that's true, he was ascribing her literal breathing to her disorder and medication, not to being alive. And I'm all for the Beauchamp family getting justice here, whatever that can even mean in this situation. But I will say that their attorney hasn't been totally helpful in quelling the public's fears. Beauchamp's lawyer, Jeffrey Feiger, who, fun fact, was also Jack Kevorkian's lawyer, immediately started telling the press that had it not been for Tamisha's open eyes, the embalmer would have drained her blood and embalmed her without a second thought.
They would have begun draining her blood, to be very, very frank about it, and would have begun embalming her. No one would have known that Tamisha was sent to the funeral home alive. Alive.
If you've ever seen a dead person or handled a dead person like funeral home workers do on a regular basis, there's a distinct difference between the living and the dead, especially 2 hours after death. Dead people look and feel dead. They don't breathe, they don't blink. Dead people also don't bleed, not that I think it would have gotten that far. Was Tamisha Beauchamp ever in any real danger of being embalmed? I personally don't think so. The far greater danger was how long she was kept away from the care of emergency physicians, just riding around town in a body bag. It seems like the story here isn't
Alive in a funeral home.
but the more mundane, pervasive, well-documented problem of the way Black women and disabled women are treated by the medical establishment. And on that note, hopefully having answered your question, it's my time. Time to talk about something no one was asking for. And no, it's not my NBA hot takes, although I have many.
Kawhi is on timeout. No one is to speak to him. Today, you're going to hear about the Kentucky Meat Shower, which is not a sex act. How dare you?
March 9th, 1867 was a bright, clear day at the Crouch Farm just a few miles outside of Olympia Springs, Kentucky. Mrs. Allen Crouch was in her yard making soap when, quote, meat, which looked like beef, began to fall all around her. It was raining meat out of a clear sky. The pieces were 3 to 4 inches square and covered an area of 150 by 50 yards. This was not normal. The meat shower lasted for only a few minutes, and upon examination, a larger piece looked like it had been, quote, torn from the throat of some animal. The meat eaters on the farm descended, the cats and dogs and hogs, and chowed down on the sky meat. They were all quite happy until the dog got sick. Mr. Crouch put some of the meat in a bottle with alcohol and took it into town to the local Irish rail worker, Jimmy Welsh. Welsh, like your cousin who will do anything for a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos and a cannabis gummy, agreed to taste the sky meat for $1. Dude, this fool's about to eat the sky meat. Crazy. But Welsh wasn't as hardcore as he led on to be. After trying unsuccessfully to choke down the mystery meat, Welsh gave it up because he remembered, yeah, it's Lent. Weak, bruh. Weak. But the local butcher named Frisbee stepped up to sample the sky meat. After chewing it and trying to swallow it, but eventually spitting it out, Frisbee said, "I've handled all kinds of meat, and I've never tasted anything like it before. I'm not prepared to say for certain that the taste resembled that of either fish, flesh, or fowl. It looked more like mutton than anything else I can compare it to." A week after the meat dropped, a Mr. Joe Jordan also tried to eat some of the meat, but also quickly spat it out. Upon squeezing it, he described a brown mucus oozing from it and described the smell, quote, as like that of a dead body. Let's recap. Some stinky mystery meat rained down from the sky into Mrs. Crouch's yard, and all the dudes in town were like, oh yeah, no, I'll eat it. Not surprisingly, I'm pretty sure Mrs. Crouch herself sat the meat tasting out. You may be thinking this was a hoax, but Mrs. Crouch was a reliable witness with no reason to lie. So what was up with the sky meat? At first, scientists said that the ham from the heavens was actually a substance called nostoc that forms when cyanobacteria colonies swell up into gelatinous blobs. Supposedly, animals will gobble up nostoc, and it tastes like chicken. The only problem with the nostoc theory is that when the substance was tested, it was found to be lung, muscle fibers, and connective tissue. Theories about where the meat came from baffled scientific circles, with theories ranging from two brothers who got into a knife fight and were picked up by a twister that spat their mangled flesh out over Olympia Springs, to the belief that the flesh was the remains of alien livestock that was orbiting the Earth after their home planet exploded. I mean, that's my choice. That's what I choose to believe. And I'll tell you right now, this remains an unsolved mystery. But the most logical theory seems to be good old vulture vomit. Vultures gorging on a carcass may have gotten startled or frightened and had to quickly take flight. If the escaping vultures were too weighed down by the tasty carcass flesh, they might have had to regurgitate it mid-air. Another theory suggests the local vultures may have eaten a poisoned animal body and vomited it because of the poison. Although Mrs. Crouch has always claimed it was a clear sky when the meat rained down, she would have noticed hordes of gagging vultures flying by. So the next time you're in Olympia Springs, Kentucky, take a bite of a turkey leg, look at the skies, and think of the brave men who ate vulture vomit, because who doesn't love free sky meat?
Kentucky Meat Shower.
Special thanks to my friend Colin Dickey, whose new book, The Unidentified, got me hooked on meat showers. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, you will die. And this study shows that if you're a morbidly curious individual, you're more psychologically resilient during this pandemic. So, isn't that lovely for all of us? That's totally me. I'm doing absolutely perfect. Goodbye. This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts just like you.
Hello, welcome to Caitlin News. Flotsam jetsam. Flotsam jetsam.
Flotsam jetsam. Isn't that hard? Yeah.
Sure, Jan.
The more mundane, pervasive, well-documented problem of loud cars outside of my apartment. Weak, bro. Weak. Weak, bro. Weak. Oh, I gotta do that again. That was no good. Weak, bro. Weak.
Good. Hot.
Right, I think that's it. Let's check out the old clipperoonies, shall we? See how it looks. Oh my god.
Kentucky Meat Shower. Kentucky Meat Shower. Kentucky Meat Shower. Kentucky Meat Shower. Kentucky